All right, what is up, guys? How are you guys? It's Friday, May 5th. I'm Molly Nevola. You're seeing a shot right now in the corner of your screen, just a live picture from California. This is the town of Benicia, California. There is some sort of refinery fire, flare-up, or explosion going on that we're getting live picture of, so I wanted to bring that to you right away. But happy Friday, guys. Happy Cinco de Mayo. This is what you're looking at right there at the bottom of your screen. Yeah, it's finally Friday. We have an interesting show for you today, including some breaking news just about 20 minutes ago that I'm going to bring to you. If you guys have been following the Rockville High School alleged rape situation, we had been following it for weeks here at Fox 5, and it's been one of our top stories on the web and on TV. And just today, breaking news that the rape and the sexual assault charges have been dropped for one of the males in this alleged case, Jose Montano in Rockville High School. Our reporter Alex Limon was there on the scene when they broke that news, and the defense attorney spoke to a small crowd. I'm going to show you some of her tweets because this is the best way, I think, to get this information. Check this out right here. So this is when it all broke about 25 minutes ago. The rape and sex assault charges dropped against one of the people, Jose Montano, in the Rockville High case. But the state is pursuing child porn charges in juvenile court. Now, if we flip it along here through her tweets, we see some more stuff. Hang on one second. There it is. Despite a judge ordering immediate release of him, he may be held to new child porn charges. Unclear. That was after that first tweet. And then the state's attorney office and Montgomery County Police would not take any questions about the rape and sex assault charges dropped at this press conference. She got a little video clip here of the prosecutors, and we're going to play that for you now. Let me get that up.
Filing of charges by Montgomery County Police were supported by the information that was within the possession of the police as of March the 16th, 2017. But as all of you know, investigations do not stop once an arrest is made, and the continuing investigative efforts have led us to where we are today in this matter. The investigation included comprehensive reviews of original witness interviews in this case, numerous additional witness interviews, a review of medical records, a review of videotape interview recordings, a review of school security video. There are 105 cameras within this particular school.
So as you can see there in her tweet, she got a little video clip of that, and her quote, as she says, "As prosecutors, we always go where the facts take us, regardless of public opinion." And I was watching this press conference as it just broke about 20 minutes ago, and they were talking about how the original charges cannot be sustained in this case. The 17-year-old Jose Montano now lies with the juvenile court only, and that is a whole separate matter. And the 18-year-old in this alleged rape case may be held for, or will be held for, possession of child pornography and will proceed in regular court. That will be another matter to be determined in about 90 days. We're going to keep going along with her tweets here just to get a little more updated information about this. Another little video that she was able to grab from the defense attorney. Check this out.
Not the other way around. And it really is egregious that the state is even charging our client with pornography, because, as I stated, she was the one that created it and distributed it. And if they're going to charge, which they have, our client, then they should also charge her.
So a statement there from the defense attorney, outraged with the child pornography charges, saying that child porn laws were not created for these circumstances. Just another clip from Alex Limon, who's there on the scene of this breaking case, and there's her original tweet. So just a little update for you. Alex will have more on this story. This is her story for the day. This all just happened about 30 minutes ago. And I know we've been following it for a long time. It's been a big talker. You've seen the stories on our website, on our Facebook. Let us know what you think and how this is resonating with you today. Feel free to chat with us here on the YouTube stream or join us on Facebook. Come on to our Facebook timeline and check out all the breaking stories there. We're going to bring you back to these live shots in Benicia, California. This is a refinery fire gone awry. A little bit of a flare up there. Check it out. All right, so obviously weather has been a big talk today in DC. It is insanely rainy, except for the fact that it's cleared up since the morning. Check out this live picture of the Capitol. Cloudy skies over the Capitol, kind of reminiscent of House of Cards. I won't lie about that. Looks like a little ominous over the Capitol, but things have cleared up. Earlier, we saw rain droplets on this camera, but just looks a little bit cloudy and windy today. But we did earlier this morning have a little bit of severe weather. I know I walked here, I trudged from the metro in the rain today. And our weather guy, Mike Thomas, was here in house to give a little live breaking excerpt about what it's all like. And during the live shot, he got sort of a breaking alert about thunderstorms in the area. So I'm going to bring you that video to see what it's kind of like behind the scenes when we have that breaking weather alert news. This is it.
Everybody, happy Friday. All right, we made it to the end of the week. And I know everybody wants to know when they get off work today. Is it going to be pouring still? Is it going to be raining? I'm sorry for everybody who hasn't hit the roads yet because the morning commute's a mess. Aaron's been telling us about that all morning. Yeah, we got a couple more hours. At least, let's see, it's 8 o'clock. At least 2 more hours here of like a steady rain. Maybe a little less than that if we're lucky. But actually kind of the worst is yet to come. Come on over. Come on into my weather center. We'll show you what's up. All right, there's your radar. Right now, compared to where we've been, it's not, I mean, there are pockets of heavy rain around D.C., but it's definitely not as heavy as it was, say, an hour or so ago. All that heavy rain from earlier is pushed up towards the Maryland border. That was kind of round one early this morning. Annie tweeted about how terrible it was down at the National Mall. And Melanie Alnwick was having some problems with her microphones and stuff. Now, we got another round coming. It's kind of just how I want to say it. Let me put it in motion. This is just within the last hour. You can see this line starting to lift up to the north here. There are some embedded thunderstorms. I mean, you see the deep reds here. And look at how they're kind of, each little segment is almost bowing out a little bit. You got a little push there almost. Let me stop it. You got a push there. And then you got another one down here, and then even farther down to the south towards Richmond. There's actually a tornado warning out just south of Richmond, just north of the Petersburg area. You see a little bit of lightning. I'll take the radar off and put lightning up. There's a little bit of lightning right down there. That's the only lightning I'm seeing, except for maybe one more here, just south of Fredericksburg and Hartwood. But there's a lot of cloud-to-cloud lightning that we're seeing, and we only pick up cloud-to-ground lightning on this particular system, just to let everybody know. So again, we still have kind of the worst yet to come here. It looks like a heavy rain is going to get to D.C. once again in about 15 minutes or so. Oh, severe thunderstorm warning. Okay, Charles, Prince George's, St. Mary's County. Let's see. I gotta inform Tucker of that. Matt.
So you can see here, this is where he gets a little bit of a breaking situation. And our camera guy, Sam, who's our web producer in the morning, was taking this video. You had to kind of follow him, and Mike had to deal with this situation.
Charles and Prince George's, yes. No, severe thunderstorm warning.
Until how long?
Let's see, until 8:45.
Okay, cool.
All right, so let me get that out real quick. That's how action goes down in the Weather Center, by the way. So there you go. If you're in Charles, Prince George's, and St. Mary's County until 8:45. So yeah, okay. So there you go. I was just talking about how some of these things are embedded. It's not a lot. It doesn't have a lot of light, but it's definitely got some wind in it. So this is what we do in our little system. There it is with the severe thunderstorms moving in. So I'll go ahead and grab it. I'll put the warning on our little graphic system here so people can see. And I will throw an arrow on it. And we'll tweet that out so you all can see it. And then I will get back to talking and we'll plan it all out. Because guess what? The afternoon's not as bad. Let's name this something random. Get that out on Twitter. The afternoon's not as bad as this morning is. This morning's got all the heavy rain, the severe thunderstorms, and here. I'm sorry, I'm a little broken with the talking right now. Yes, look at Erin as she talks about how miserable the commute is. There. Main threat, by the way, in that thunderstorm is going to be strong winds. Looks like maybe some small hail, but it's mostly the winds I'd be concerned of. Winds of 50 to 60 miles an hour plus. What's up, Tucker? Here, I got you. Hands up, hands off.
So once again, guys, you're watching a little behind-the-scenes action of what it's like to be part of the weather team in the morning, the Weather Center here in our newsroom. This is our morning web producer taking a little live Facebook video with Mike Thomas, and in the middle of it, he got an alert for a thunderstorm warning. So it's kind of fun to see.
So now he can use that. So you'll see that graphic go up.
Okay. So the alert came in, you were down here, and then you grabbed it and getting it ready for Tucker. You're tweeting it out right now.
Yes. And then give me 1 second, I'm almost done.
Uh-huh.
And we will roll
so that's
on
how
forward.
it works, guys. That's how it works.
That's how we do things in the Weather Center. We get it done! All right. So that's done. That's out. And now I can kind of relax again.
Let's see.
But we'll watch it.
All right, so this is the graphic you just made.
Yes. So that's it. It takes usually it takes about 30 seconds, but I'm a little distracted at the moment. Okay, so there you go. That's up for Tucker. And, all right, I think I'm good. We can get back to talking about the weather now. Okay. What did I do with my phone? Yeah. We got that in because we chat with the National Weather Service there. So they issue all these warnings out of the National Weather Service when they come in. And we're able to just push it out straight to...
So that's it right there at the bottom,
Yeah, that's it at the bottom. So it comes out there first, and it loads in our system, and then we can get it out to the public like that. So that's kind of how these warnings work. We don't issue our own warnings. That's all from the National Weather Service. Some people have asked me that in the past. So again, Charles, King George County in Virginia, St. Mary's County in Maryland, Stafford County, southern portions, extreme southern portions of Prince George's County. Looks like southern portions of Fairfax County, maybe eastern portions of Prince William and Fauquier, not Fauquier, but eastern portions of Prince William County there. Are in, like, just kind of straight up I-95 is sort of on the outer fringe. So here, let's take a look at it on radar so you can see what's up. That is this line right here that they're concerned about, that heavy, heavy, deep red. Let's go into the storm. You see that bright blue? That's a strong indication of winds out of the radar. So it's saying gusts of 60. Ignore the negative. That just means what direction winds are moving, and it's letting me know. But winds of like 66 miles an hour are being estimated by the radar. Now this is a little far above the ground because the radar site, and again I don't want to get too terribly technical here, but the radar site's here. So the farther you get from the radar site, the higher the radar beam goes into the storm. So it's probably upper level winds that are around the 60 mile an hour mark. I'll scroll down, I'll change radar site. So now we're into the radar site out of Williamsburg, Virginia. I actually think it's in Wakefield, but regardless, we'll see what they're pulling here. And it looks like they're pulling winds of 70. It's still a little far. It's like right in between the two sites, but still it gives me a rough estimation. It's anywhere along that green line you see where you're going to be experiencing those gusty winds. So towards just north of Bowling Green, probably headed for Tappahannock, headed for Montrose there along the northern neck. You'll get some gusty winds here within the next 45 minutes or so. And then we'll see how well that line holds together as it crosses into portions of southern Maryland. Closer to our neighborhood, there's some gusty winds embedded in these stronger cells of heavy rain, like this line here. There's some gusty winds in there, but nothing so organized yet. Like, let me go back to that map. You can see how well organized this guy is compared to how everything's kind of more spotty and scattered up here to the north. So if any of these get more organized, we'll get some more warnings. Of course, just like you saw us do there live, we'll bring them to you as they come. Again, I'm not seeing a ton of lightning out of these. I mean, we got one strike up there. That's it for lightning. But that doesn't mean there's a lot of cloud-to-cloud lightning, because we can only detect cloud-to-ground strikes. The bigger concern is just because of this bow echo. See how it looks almost like a bow? That's terrible because it's the same color as my thing. But let's go below. So see how that line of storms kind of looks like that? So like if I drew something like that and like that there, it looks like a bow and arrow, sort of. So that bow is very indicative of strong winds within a band of thunderstorms. So that's why they warned that storm. Again, I'll put it in motion through the last hour. Look at how this is lifting up to the north. It's going to come across Charles County, through the northern neck of Virginia, across St. Mary's County. And if it holds together, it'll make it up into Prince George's County, Calvert County, and eventually Anne Arundel County as well. So those are kind of the areas you have to watch out for. Again, other places I'm concerned about coming into Loudoun County here, southern Loudoun County. We'll see if that little band of storms is able to organize at all. And then maybe even they're between it, kind of through Prince William Falk here and Fairfax County, here in northern Virginia, but still some definitely heavy rain, maybe an occasional gust of wind, but nothing too terribly organized right now. We'll watch the northern end of this band because you kind of have winds colliding here. These are the areas where, as these winds collide, that you sometimes get a weak little spin up. Yes, technically tornadoes, but they're of the weak variety. It's not the F4s and F5s you hear about in Texas and down across the South all the time, but it's where these bands come together that you can get those quick spin ups. So we're watching for that. Again, I watched the velocity to see if I see anything spinning or anything rotating. Right now, no. It's just a lot of gusty winds coming right up through the northern neck of Virginia and about to cross into southern Maryland. So that's the chief concern here going through the next hour or so. Of course, we'll keep you up to date with any warnings that come in. All right, bigger picture. So let's switch off here. I'll head over to the national radar. There is a tornado watch out for portions of southern Virginia. If you happen to be watching, because everybody watches on Facebook, if you happen to be watching from the Norfolk area or Virginia Beach, you're under a tornado watch that extends into the southern portions of the eastern shore there until later on this afternoon. That's where the core of the severe weather will be, but as you already know, you can get some even up here on the northern edge of the system. But look towards the back. Your back edge is kind of coming through central Virginia, West Virginia, and even up towards Garrett County, Maryland. They're seeing the last of the rain starting to push out to the north and to the east. After this wave gets through, we'll see the clouds thin out a bit. We could get a little bit of sun. I don't think a whole lot, but we'll see a little bit of sun this afternoon. But then showers, because things will just be a little unstable, showers could certainly redevelop as we head into your afternoon and evening hours. So let's do our Futurecast model right here. Let's get it out to 9 and 10. By the way, most guidance I've seen has the worst here in DC between 8:30, which is a half hour.
All right, guys, bringing it back to myself in the studio. Thanks for watching on our YouTube stream, guys. We're going to bring it back to some other topics of the day. We opened the show by telling you about the breaking news out of Rockville High School at the alleged rape case. Charges have been dropped for one of the individuals there involved in the case. We're also seeing a lot of severe weather in this area, in DC, in the DMV area. We saw it all across the Midwest, all across the states, even throughout the week, and we've been tracking that live. So I wanted to bring you that video from earlier this morning. Our weather team was on it and dealing with all that breaking news and bringing you live pictures of that. Take a look at this. We're getting this live feed coming in right now out of San Francisco, where the weather is a lot better, obviously there, but check this out. A truck has fallen into a sinkhole. Not exactly sure how this happens or other details beside it, but we have a little sound on here, just raw video from our photojournalists out there at our sister stations.
Thanks for your help.
Quite the picture out in San Francisco.
That's the trick. I got pushed the back. What you gotta do? Audio was picked up. I was looking at the AT guy, man. The AT guy got the whole entire thing. But remember, yeah, but what I did with Apple is different from that. I got to do that. So.
It was nothing to be
And guys, speaking of severe weather, this is obviously not a severe weather situation. You're looking at a live shot in San Francisco of some type of accident where a truck kind of dipped over and fell over into this sinkhole. We don't have a lot of details on it, but we are getting this feed in live. And if you're just joining us, thanks so much for watching Fox 5 Live. I'm Molly Nevola in the DC newsroom, and we're just going to bring you live pictures of cool stuff that's happening across the country, live, maybe some things that have just happened in our area. We have right now going on live shots of a refinery flare-up, a fire in Benicia, California. So this is just another shot, a live shot in California of just sort of another picture, an aerial picture of this refinery flare-up. You see the black smoke hovering over that vast area there, and that's what we got coming in. Also, I want to bring your attention back to our area, the DMV. If you are local, maybe you're interested in this area. In Fairfax County, Virginia, we had a woman who was rescued from her vehicle in a flooded roadway. You've got to check this video out. I'm going to bring it to you here just moments ago, earlier this morning. Check it out. So this was the picture, guys. We don't really have a lot of sound, but it was just raw video of this rescue where a woman was trapped in the high water because of all this rain. We had tons and tons of rain this morning, lots of severe weather warnings, and the vehicle was just stalled in the water, and she had to be rescued out of it. So I'm not quite sure exactly what footage we'll have from this, but a little bit of a rough video, but you can see police kind of coming in there. This wooded area all flooded in Fairfax County. All right, guys, back to me here in the newsroom. If you guys are interested in local crime, maybe local investigations on stuff like banking fraud and cigarette trafficking, well, Fairfax County in Virginia this morning had a crime update from police. Pretty interesting. They had an extensive multi-agency investigation that resulted in 43 people indicted on more than 740 different crimes. This was a 2-year investigation that began in January 2015. ended up obviously finishing up this year, 2 years later. And the police there have an update for us. They streamed this out from their department just a few hours ago. And I'm going to bring you that video. Pretty interesting stuff. One of the crimes is called check kiting, which is a term that refers to writing checks for funds that are not available. So check out this video from the Fairfax County, Virginia police.
$8,000. The majority of that check kiting investigation happened in Fairfax County. After looking into the accounts and to the suspects in the accounts, Detective Porter started to see account bust-outs. This is the process of building up a banking history to get higher credit, making deposits and quick withdrawals that give you higher credit into your bank account, and then they withdraw the money from the account before the funds are spent. Where we saw this were subjects were loading up these accounts with large quantities of cash, and then they would go out and rent vehicles. While renting the vehicles, they would take the vehicles out, and when you rent a vehicle with your debit card, they don't charge your debit card until after you're completed with the card. So these rental car companies in Fairfax County were out money from the funds being withdrawn from the bank bust-outs. So that greatly increased the loss to that specific bank. The rental vehicles we found were being held beyond their time, which makes the vehicle stolen. Then we also found that vehicles were being abandoned in New York City, Richmond, and sometimes we were locating suspects still driving them. Multiple vehicles during the course of the investigation were stopped with suspects in it, and that was when it was learned that they were trafficking cigarettes. The cigarettes were being trafficked from the Richmond area up the East Coast towards New York. In total, during the investigation, 9 banks within Fairfax County have been affected. All 9 banks' loss for these suspects is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The first bank, the total loss for the first bank was $620,000. So these 12 to 14 suspects in this investigation were determined to be using addresses in Northern Virginia and Richmond area. Several of them were using several different addresses in Fairfax County. It was at this point that Detective Porter contacted the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and they had come into the investigation with us. At our request during the investigation, when we reached out to the other banks, the suspect list increased to approximately 80 people. The way we were linked these 80 people were using same addresses, same phone numbers in their accounts at the banks. One specific address in the county in the Falls Church area was being used by multiple suspects. Going through the investigation, financial records, we were locating subjects who were being stopped in these rental cars doing the cigarette trafficking. Then, through financial records in the investigation, we located that several gas stations and convenience stores in Henrico County, Chesterfield County, were having large quantities of items purchased from these accounts. We were able to find out that the similar purchases by each suspect were large quantities of cigarettes, linking everything from Richmond and Northern Virginia together. It was about this point when we got into touch with Chesterfield County and Henrico County and started to basically deconflict the suspects that Detective Porter had and the suspects that they had down in Henrico County. The suspect list grew to over 150 people at that point in time. Detectives were able to locate storage facilities and businesses that were involved in this investigation down in the Richmond area. So detectives and agents started a multi-jurisdiction investigation with all the agencies that I explained to you beforehand. Since January of 2015, in Fairfax County, we have arrested more than 12 people related to this case. On Monday, April 24th, Henrico County indicted 43 subjects on over 740 crimes. You have been given a list of the names of people. The update as of this morning looks like 19 of the 43 are in custody. and there is no doubt we will catch the remaining of that 43. The 43 names that you have on that list have not been charged in Fairfax County as of yet. Those cases are still open, but with a multi-jurisdictional case like this, Detective Porter and our detectives are going to be witnesses in the cases in Henrico, just as the investigators down in Henrico, Chesterfield, and the other agencies will be witnesses in the cases here in Fairfax County. So evidence is being shared between all jurisdictions. It was agreed upon to make the indictments at this time, although it is still an ongoing criminal investigation. I can give you the charges that have been placed. I do not have specific charges on specific people, but I can give you the charges that have been placed. 18.2-178, obtaining money by false pretenses, felony. 18.2-246.3, money laundering. 18.2-108, receiving stolen goods. That charge would go to people who were in rental vehicles and held them over with the vehicle being stolen. 58.1-1017.1, possession with the intent to distribute tax-paid contraband cigarettes. As well, down in Henrico and Chesterfield counties, this group is involved in, or members of these groups are involved in violent crimes to include shootings, robberies, home invasion robberies, that sort of thing, carjackings. These groups would target each other with the large amounts of money and basically use violence against each other. And I believe that is all the details I have for you at this point. And again, this investigation between all of these entities has been able to identify this organized criminal enterprise. It is definitely organized crime. Yes.
So we see a likeness in the names, either African or Middle Eastern. I mean, are these people all from the same place? And what can you tell us about?
Yes, the majority of these subjects are all foreign nationals. I believe it's from Northern Africa. That would be the reason that the FBI and the State Department and Homeland Security are involved in the investigation.
Do you know anything about the immigration status of any?
I do know some are naturalized citizens, some are not. The majority of them are foreign nationals.
Are they undocumented?
So that's not something that I can comment on. That's something that Homeland Security and FBI are looking into.
Are they involved in that? In this?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more, just sort of describe, how they were able, the whole cigarette smuggling part of the scheme, which I think people don't understand best, and how they were able to make so much money, why there was this traffic from Richmond to New York, just kind of what they were doing.
Sure. So in Richmond, the price of cigarettes in Richmond is extremely low. The price of cigarettes up in the Northeast is extremely high. So what they will do is they can go into Richmond and purchase large quantities of cigarettes and then transport them up to New York, and they're going to double their profit. If a carton of cigarettes in Virginia is $50 or so, let's say, give or take, depending on the brand, up in the Northeast, it's $110 to $120 per carton. So they're doubling their money.
What's your sense about how much money they were taking in?
In the millions.
And what was their purpose for that money?
The purpose that we do not know where all the money has gone. We have seized thousands of dollars. We have seized thousands of cartons of cigarettes. We have seized vehicles and things. However, the source of where the money is going is still currently under investigation.
You've obviously been a part of many investigations in your career. This sounds really extensive. Can you give a little bit of a scope and perspective of how big this situation really was?
So we do have a list of probably over 150 suspects, people that we believe are involved. From the very low end of the people who are purchasing the cigarettes, to the people who are driving the cigarettes, to the people who are getting the accounts, we would say maybe middle level, and laundering the money so that it's harder to determine what is happening and where it is going. And then whoever the money is going to or where it's ending up in the end. So it is an extremely extensive investigation, and it is a very large group of people, which is unusual.
And when you started to sort of personally peel back the onion to see how deep it was, what was your thoughts? What was your reaction as you saw this?
It was very good detective work, and we felt we were lucky that we stumbled into it. So The cigarette issue down south in the Richmond area is not uncommon. They do that. They do investigate that on a routine basis. The financial crimes up here in the Northern Virginia area is not unusual. We do investigate those on a routine basis, on a daily basis. The banks are calling our financial crimes unit on a weekly basis with investigations just like this. It was really good detective work on this side for the guys to see, hey, there's something bigger going on. There's common threads here. And then coordinating down south with our partners, saying, who deal with the cigarettes specifically, realizing, hey, there are a lot of these people coming through. How are we going to get this to stop? And it kind of just comes together that way.
And does it seem that they exposed kind of weaknesses or holes in the system?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the violent crime element? You said that there was, where was that specifically happening? Was it in our area, or
no? So
how big a part of that was this?
It was a big part for Henrico County, Chesterfield County, in the Richmond area. We do not have any violent cases attached to the group here. However, we do know it's the same people. We do know it's the same suspects. This morning, there was a press conference held down south in Henrico County, and all of the partners were there since the indictments were there, the majority of them down there, and went into more detail there about that. So there is more information to that. That was probably one of the reasons that we did the indictments now, is to get the violence to stop down south.
In terms of number of suspects, is this one of the biggest, if not biggest, case of this kind Fairfax County Police have been involved in?
I honestly don't know. I'm sure we've had other organized crime cases that have been as big. I couldn't say whether this is the biggest or not. It is an extremely large case. It is a extremely complex case with all the different organizations involved.
You said, I think you said you're not sure what the purpose for the money is. Is terrorism funding being explored? I mean, what are the options that are being? Tell me what's being.
So all of it's on the table. When money is being laundered in the United States and we don't know where it's going, then yes, obviously that's one of the things we're going to look into is terrorism. And whatever the case may be, we don't have any indication at this point exactly what that is. That is still under investigation. But yes, that's always on the table with money laundering.
And that we're talking millions. Can you be more specific? How many million?
I can tell you with the 9 banks in Fairfax County, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in loss. I can tell you there are more banks down in the Henrico area. I think 3 or 4 other ones, maybe some smaller branches down there that were also victims. So with 9 different banks, close to hundreds of thousands of dollars, up closer to $1 million than not, that's the best we can tell you. The problem with such a large organization and so many people involved, it's really hard to put a firm number down.
Can you characterize the individuals who were in Northern Virginia, their role in the operation? Were they the mastermind?
So some interesting news out of Fairfax County, if you've been following along with us, what they're calling organized crime and 43 indictments on these charges of money laundering in various different ways. And like he said, anything that has to do with that topic, they do investigate further for terrorism and other types of that nature. So some interesting updates out of Fairfax County. That was the police department streaming that live earlier this morning. So I wanted to bring that to you on our stream here today. Back to California. Check out some of these new pictures of Benicia, California. This is a picture of that same refinery flare-up. Just a cool shot. Actually, I'm going to take this off so you guys can see it a little clearer. More clearly. And then also, concurrently, we have that live shot in San Francisco. It looks like they've gotten this truck sort of out of being dipped over in that sinkhole. We had some close-ups on it earlier. I'm not sure if we'll get those back, but looks like they efforted that rescue. So that is now underway. And we have this new source on the refinery fire as well in Benicia, California. All right, guys, I don't know if you guys have been tracking at all the baby eaglets in the DC Arboretum, but here's a video of them. A lot of people have been following them. This is the DC Eagle cam at the Arboretum here in upper Northeast DC. And if you guys have been there, maybe you've seen sort of where they're located, but this cam has been on them steadily since their birth. And I know it's a little bit of a choppy feed here, but they're getting bigger and people love watching them. There's like a whole blog for it and sort of website that people love to comment on. So just a little shot so you can see them today, what that looks like inside. And back over to San Francisco, looks like a little bit of a different angle of this truck situation. So it looks like they were actually able to lift the truck up and out of this hole to untopple it from this hole. We don't really have a lot of details on why or how this all happened, but our camera sort of rushed there right when we got it in live. So I just wanted to bring you those pictures so you could check it out for yourself. And if you guys have been following politics, you probably, if you watched yesterday, you saw us cover a lot of stuff here in DC. We saw President Trump eventually speak in the Rose Garden after the Republicans in the House passed the Repeal and Replace Act for Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Right after that, right after he was in the Rose Garden making that speech, he went up to New York, and it was actually his first visit to New York since taking office here in Washington, which actually was kind of hard to believe. I didn't really realize that was the case, but his first visit up there, and he was met with a bunch of protests outside of Trump Hotel and whatnot. I know some people were tracking that video from last night, but he went up to meet with the Prime Minister of Australia, and I have a little sort of butted up video of clips from that I'm going to bring you from his meeting there with the Prime Minister and some of the sound bites from his speech at the gala that he attended aboard the USS Intrepid up there. So that was all yesterday, last night. Check it out.
Turning point in the war, and I was just up on the flight deck with some of the veterans, American and Australian veterans. They were teenagers,
right?
When they turned the war, the tide of war, and Australia and America started to win.
So we've been allies for 99 years.
Yep.
Can you imagine that? 99 years and never a bad time. So it's a great, great thing.
Mr. President, how hard is it going to be to get that health care bill through the Senate?
I think we'll get it through. The Republicans are very united, like seldom before. I mean, you see that today. Thank you. Thank you so much. To every man and woman who has served America and Australia in uniform, two proud nations salute you, believe me. There is no better place to remember the importance of military readiness than this ship. It was laid down just 1 week before the tragic and the tragedy of Pearl Harbor, and helped secure freedom in its hour of need. I was proud to share the news that this week my administration reached a historic deal with Congress to end the devastating cuts to the United States military. I don't know what they were thinking when they started cutting, but we've got it all coming back in big league, believe me. It's coming back fast, ordering lots of planes, lots of ships, lots of jobs too, by the way. We will add more than $25 billion for national defense in a short period of time, and we will ensure that our service members have the equipment, tools, training, and resources that they need and that they so richly deserve. But security also requires friends that you can truly count on. That is why I was pleased to meet with Prime Minister Turnbull, and why I'm so glad to be here with you tonight. And we had a great meeting just a little while ago.
So he had some nice words to say about the Prime Minister of Australia there, and I wanted to show you a little bit from that gala, again, aboard the USS Intrepid. That was President Trump last night. He rushed off after the Republicans were able to pass the revised health care bill in the House. Now we wait a few more weeks, maybe even 6 weeks, for the Senate side to all happen. If you heard somebody kind of reach out and was like, had a comment about that and wanted to ask him about the passage of the bill, and he answered that question while he was on stage there with the Prime Minister. So just an interesting night for President Trump, a long day for them and for politics. Bringing it back now to Maryland here, this local Rockville High School alleged rape case. You guys have been possibly following it, reading along on our website. Check out our Facebook page right now. We have updates on this earlier breaking news from this morning, and our reporter Alex Lamone is there on the scene to get all the information for tonight's show. We will continue to update that web story, so don't forget to check it out to get updated. I have been following her tweets, and there's nothing new that I haven't all put together here, so check it out. I have a little board for you guys to look at. This is the case. Everything just happened about an hour ago. The breaking news was that the charges have been dropped against one of the males in this case, Jose Montano, in the Rockville High alleged rape case, but the state is pursuing child porn charges for him in juvenile court. Now, if we go along in this, clicking through, he is being released. She tweeted out immediately. Prosecutors say, after reviewing the video and speaking to witnesses, facts do not support the rape charge. She even took a little bit of video in some of the press availabilities that both the prosecutor and the defense attorney made. So I'll show you some of those as well. So this person, he is being released from jail, but ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, may take him into custody. Defense attorneys say agents were in court. She's tweeting all this out earlier. And then she followed up to say the breaking news that despite ordering that immediate release, he actually may be held due to child pornography charges. Skipping through here, check out this video from the prosecutor during this little media press avail.
The initial filing of charges by Montgomery County Police were supported by the information that was within the possession of the police as of March the 16th, 2017. But as all of you know, investigations do not stop once an arrest is made, and the continuing investigative efforts have led us to where we are today in this matter. The investigation included comprehensive reviews of original witness interviews in this case, numerous additional witness interviews, a review of medical records, a review of videotape interview recordings, a review of school security video. There are 105 cameras within this particular school.
So again, just the prosecutor saying that there just was not enough, there was not enough evidence for the original charges to be sustained for this man on these rape charges. So that has been dropped, and check it out. We have also a little statement from the defense attorney that Alex got for us on her tweet. Listen in here.
These to Mr. Montano, not the other way around. And it really is egregious that the state is even charging our client with pornography, because, as I stated, she was the one that created it and distributed it. And if they're going to charge, which they have, our client, then they should also charge her.
Just a little statement from the defense attorney from Alex, and then back to her original tweet. So be sure to follow along on our web story. We're going to keep updating that throughout the day. And Alex will hopefully, I believe, be doing her live shot from Rockville High School if she's able to for tonight's evening broadcast. I'm going to bring you back to the scene in San Francisco here. Take a look at these pictures. Looks like they've really cleared it up there in San Francisco with that truck incident that was in the sinkhole. This is a live picture from that scene. Oops. All right, guys. Well, coming back to myself here in the newsroom. Thanks for watching Fox 5 Live on our YouTube stream. You can also follow us on all our handles. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Fox 5 DC, Twitter, Fox 5 DC, Snapchat, and Instagram, all the same. And you can get all these updated reports in our web stories, as well as follow along with my stream on our website as well. So don't forget to also click subscribe on this YouTube stream. If you are on YouTube, you'll get a chance to see whenever we pop up with any live breaking news or whenever I come up on the show. We are bringing this to you midday on the weekdays from around 11:30 into the afternoon with all your breaking and live news and events from politics here in DC to across the nation, across the world. Whatever we got coming in, we want to bring it to you live. Okay, so now we go across the pond. Let's go over to London. This is a tape from our film guy. You might know him, our movie guy, Kevin McCarthy. He's in London. He just took the train, the Orient Express, up from Venice, Italy, and he landed in London. He's there for the Alien premiere, which he attended last night, and he also taped a nice review of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which just came out. I had a friend that went to see it in LA last night. Super stoked to see the premiere of number 2. All those fans are. I know, like, I have friends and my sister is really into it as well. So here's Kevin's review that he's sending out to the stations. It's a little inside look of what he taped for the stations for Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
This is the movie review for the O&O package for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. All right, 3, 2. Hey everybody, it's Kevin McCarthy and I am traveling this week, but I wanted to send in my movie review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is opening up this weekend. Huge successful first film, $773 million. James Gunn's an absolutely brilliant filmmaker. I love Slither as well. But this particular film is a massive sequel. Kurt Russell's in this film as well. If you saw the first Guardians of the Galaxy, you do know that it's about a team of unlikely heroes who kind of come together to save the galaxy. This time around, it's a lot more emotional. We're digging deeper into Star-Lord's past with his father, Kurt Russell, and they're trying to save the galaxy again. Couple things before I get to my review points. Vin Diesel is still voicing Groot. He does a higher-pitched version of the I Am Groot because he's Baby Groot this time around. Also, he works for one day only. Only one day he works when he shoots the scenes. It's amazing. He gets basically a lot of money per word. He says 3 words, basically. Also, Bradley Cooper is still voicing Rocket, but it's important to know that Sean Gunn, the director of the film, is James Gunn. His brother Sean plays Rocket on set, very similar to how Andy Serkis played Gollum in Lord of the Rings. So it's very, very cool how they pulled all that special effects off. I do want to say this film is very good. I think it's a satisfying sequel. I didn't find it to be as incredibly moving as the first movie. The first movie to me was a lot more fun. It was surprising. We'd never seen anything like it before. The soundtrack was phenomenal. This time around, it still has all those amazing elements. The soundtrack's great. The visual effects are phenomenal. phenomenal. The beginning is fantastic. The end is great. My problem with the movie was the middle section really dragged a lot. And I found myself sitting there wondering why every single character was somehow having a life-changing moment in every single scene that they were in. But that being said, even Chris Pratt, I thought was a little toned down in this one. To me, the real heart of this movie is a guy named Michael Rooker. Michael Rooker's phenomenal. He plays Yondu in the movie. I mean, Pratt still has fun with the character, but there's nothing better than that opening scene in the first one where he's dancing, and then Jaimin Hantu comes in for that one scene. But it's a very satisfying sequel. I enjoyed the movie. I gave it a 4 out of 5. One thing to note when you're watching the film, as the film comes to the ending credits, make sure you sit there. There are 5 ending credit scenes. Remember, this takes place in the same universe as Thor, Captain America's, and all the Avengers films. It's in the MCU. So I gave it a 4 out of 5. I loved the first one. I really, really liked this one as well. James Gunn's a phenomenal filmmaker. You can tweet me your reaction at Kevin McCarthy TV. I did not have a chance to see the film in 3D, unfortunately. It was only screened to me in 2D. So I will hopefully see the 3D IMAX version at some point to give a review on that portion of it. But tweet me your reactions at Kevin McCarthy TV. And I'm Kevin McCarthy, Fox News.
Kevin McCarthy in London. Once again, he opened up by saying he was traveling this week, so he is still traveling. He was doing that trip to highlight the new movie Murder on the Orient Express, the second version of that, based originally on the old mystery novel by Agatha Christie. And
together we did. It was.
And sorry about that. And then he was able to video his review to send out to the stations. So that was kind of cool to check out his little clip review of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Over to another story now. This is something that just came out. We wrote something about it just actually a few moments ago. Our web producers were working on this. Slightly more drama for airlines. Check out this picture. American Airlines this time. An Australian man is suing American Airlines, alleging that he suffered serious injuries after being seated next to passengers that he claims were too grossly obese. So he's suing for being cramped by obese passengers. We just wrote up this story on our site. Apparently this guy was flying from Australia to LA, and he was in the economy class, and people were encroaching on his space, forcing him to have to change his body position, and eventually he sued the airline. So we'll have to monitor and see what becomes of that. But obviously, we've been seeing so much airline news. It's just like inundated by people, feeling that they've been mistreated or that they need to sue these airlines. Obviously, we had the big case with United, still a talker, still something big that people are concerned about. And then the Delta Airlines thing that we brought you on the show yesterday. So that was pretty interesting. Then I'm bringing you back to a live shot. Let's go across the country to Phoenix. Here is a bump shot of what Phoenix looks like today, the desert area there and the surrounding mountains. All right, guys, checking back in with you. Thanks for watching our feed here on YouTube. We are tracking a lot of different news events today, and I want to point your attention, if you've been following the Delaware state trooper who was shot and killed in the line of duty. His funeral procession was earlier this morning, just barely a couple hours ago, and just a beautiful funeral service in the rain. We are looking at, if we flip it back over to Washington, we're looking at clearer but still cloudy skies, not as much rain as we had before, which is nice. But earlier, just a few hours ago, when Corporal Stephen Ballard, age 32, when his funeral services were held in Wilmington, Delaware, it was rainy and there were hundreds of people in attendance. So check out this video that I'm efforting from one of our sister stations, Philadelphia. They got this shot of it. Check out this footage.
Oh my God. Well, Mike, this weather is at its absolute worst, just as Corporal Ballard's casket is brought here. And we thought there were a couple of thousand officers here waiting. Well, what a shock when you see maybe 200 police officers on motorcycles leading this large procession and almost doubling, it seems, the number of police officers already here. And again, this is the heaviest rain we've had. It was almost like the rain waited for the casket to arrive, or almost was part of this procession. And again, it is matching tears falling all over this first state, which has been first class in its showing of support for their police officers since this happened last week. And Mike, I want to tell you that the family has asked no media coverage, so there will be no live streaming for the public and for the media of this funeral that's going to happen at 11 o'clock. So it is a private funeral. If you're not here in person, you won't be able to see it. Now, they have a private live stream for police officers who are on duty, couldn't get here, and they have an overflow. And I can't imagine anybody wanting to sit outside in this, but we are over at the Blue Rock Stadium, and we are out in the elements, and they are going to open up the stadium and put it on the big screen for anybody that cannot get in here. And we are not even allowed in there because they're afraid somebody might shoot it off the screen. So that's how private they want to keep this. And as Greg pans to the left, all those officers that were on their motorcycles have parked their motorcycles, and that gives you a sense. Each one of those officers you see, most in lime green neon jackets, were on motorcycles that they parked, and that gives you an idea while we were in that commercial break, how many police officers came here on motorcycles. They still have their helmets on, and I had a motorcycle, and I got stuck in rain once, and I don't know how they can even see driving in conditions like this outside in the weather. So, but they did, and they, yeah, and you can see that American flag again, and you can see that really blowing. They have that thing held down 4 different ways on all corners, and it's still really going. That gives you an idea, not just heavy rain that Alex mentioned, but the high winds out here right now. Mike, if I can, we're gonna go through the crowd here, and closest to us, a busload of Philly police officers arrived, and to show you how tough police officers are, they're in those blue shirts, those can't-miss blue shirts, and I just told you about the weather conditions. You can see the blue, talking a darker blue, as they stand out here in the back of the line. They arrived just before the casket did, but some great Philly cops showing their respect and showing their support by arriving here and showing how tough they are standing in these conditions just in a blue Oxford police shirt. But they wanted to be in blue to show that's the support, the thin blue line that everybody had down here taped on their cars yesterday to show support. So Philly police in blue, proud in blue, showing their support to their fallen brother in blue.
So you guys, we're hearing the voice of the reporter in Philadelphia who was on covering this. And like you heard him say, this was sort of the pre-setup for what is going to be later the private funeral. It's probably going on right now. This was just a few hours ago in the early morning. Rain, like he said, hundreds of police officers showing up in tribute for this Delaware State police officer who was killed in the line of duty. And this was the scene there.
Yeah, that procession, the first part of the procession started arriving. I remember looking down at the phone, 6:26 a.m., and it has been nonstop. And as our officers arrive from other states, and it's never a surprise. You know, we met police from California, always from Quebec, way above Toronto, where I also worked. Police officers from where Bobby Clark's hometown is. Just all over North America, they're all one when something like this happens. And so that's why you're going to continue to see them. This is just the start of the visitation. It goes till the funeral at 11. And you can bet that more officers are on their way and probably getting slowed down by this weather that Sue's been talking about that's hitting all around the East Coast.
Just a quick background on the corporal who is being honored here. It's Delaware State Trooper Stephen Ballard. He's 32 years old, survived by his wife and 5-year-old daughter. What happened was he was shot while he was investigating a suspicious vehicle near a convenience store, and in late April. And then his killer ended up barricading himself in a nearby family home. There was a standoff with police for nearly 20 hours or so, and then the accused, the suspect who shot him, was fatally shot himself. So just a sad story. A state trooper who was killed and shot in the line of duty, and this is the outpouring of officers and other people gathering to honor him earlier this morning.
You know, and he had a lot of friends across the state because most of his career down in the southern part of Delaware. Delaware's a small state, just 3 counties. He started in the southernmost county, just moved up to Glasgow where he was working in Troop 2 and he was killed. They got 8 troops here throughout the state. And so he had a lot of former colleagues that were very close to him down in the southern part of the state that all came up here down in that Georgetown area. And, you know, Rehoboth, all those places are south of Dover, and just 1.5 years up here, and when you hear all the guys that worked with him up here in this 1.5 years, it almost sounded like he worked with them for 20 years, how well and how close they knew him and how close they felt to him. And you can bet if you work with him for the other 8 years that he was an officer down in the southern part, you can imagine other brothers down there definitely wanted to be up here. You know, Mike, we talked before, sadly, because we have to do these so often, and we talked before we don't get to learn anything about the great police officers out there. You only hear the ones that make the headlines for the wrong reasons sometimes. And yesterday, I remember reminding everybody when we started reporting on the latest incident that, hey, the other 6,600 cops in Philadelphia are phenomenal. Just don't, base everything. But we always talk about at these funerals how we don't know and tell about these great men and women until we're at their funeral. It's sad that the public doesn't really get to know who has got their back, who's going to be there when they call 911 in an emergency, whether it's their car broken down or they think somebody's breaking in their house. They don't get to know them until we have to give them their backgrounds, where we're talking them up and talking about them right now at their funeral. And that's the saddest part of this sometimes as a reporter and an anchorman, I'm sure, for you. Yeah.
So if you guys are just joining us, you're listening to a feed shot just earlier this morning. You can see in the heavy rain up in Wilmington, Delaware area for Corporal Stephen Ballard, an officer who was shot in the line of duty. And you're hearing a voice over this video. That is one of the reporters who was covering this earlier this morning, speaking back to his station, to the studio back at Philadelphia Fox 29 headquarters. So we're just tracking this video so we can show you sort of the setup beforehand of what will later be, or currently is, a private funeral ceremony for this state trooper.
In the middle one behind the tree? Yes. All right. All right. If you guys can hear us in the control room, we're on two different IFBs with these phones, so I haven't heard any cues. I just was letting you know if we're not responding. All right, they're doing drums right now, and they're playing bagpipes. Do you hear me?
All right, guys, we seem to have lost sound on that a little bit earlier with the bagpipes and whatnot, and I apologize for that. Some sort of snafu going on, but you can see sort of the scene from earlier in the rain, the pre-ceremony. And Philadelphia actually just published another live video, so fast forward to now, and this is just moments ago, just about 10 minutes ago, the procession and the funeral services continuing. This time the rain has subsided. Check out this video from Philadelphia. Services continue on for this Delaware State Trooper. See if we have sound on this one. All right, guys, if you're still joining us, thanks for watching on our YouTube stream. We're having a little bit of audio difficulties with those streams, but glad we were able to bring you some of those funeral services for the Delaware State Trooper that we've been watching that story ever since it happened in late April. He was shot and killed in the line of duty, and then police officers then did fatally shoot his killer as well. And so today we saw hundreds line up for these funeral services, and that was the feed from Philadelphia, our sister station there, Channel 29. We usually bring you the White House press briefing on this feed, and I think we will today as well, as long as we get that in. Today is a pretty special one, actually. We'll be hearing, instead of from Sean Spicer, from Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is Mike Huckabee's daughter. She was on Trump's presidential campaign, and she was listed in Time's 40 Under 40 in 2016, Time Magazine, one of the issues for that. She also now is Deputy Press Secretary for the White House. So under Sean Spicer, and she'll be speaking. Allegedly, that is the plan, is what we're seeing. So that will be the White House press briefing today around 1:30. And as long as we're talking politics, we'll bring you back to yesterday when the Republicans passed in the House the new revised Affordable Care Act to replace Obamacare. Now, we still have to see that vote go down in the Senate. But yesterday, the Democrats had something to say about that. Nancy Pelosi and some of her Senate Democrats had a few words about what they thought about that vote. And that happened in late afternoon, a little bit after my show. So I'm going to bring you there now to this video of Democrats' reaction to the healthcare vote from yesterday.
When they lose their health care coverage, the American people can thank Donald Trump and the Republicans when they hit their lifetime cap when they suffer a serious illness or an injury. Democrats will not allow Republicans to run and hide from this vote. We will make sure they know it is Republicans who are responsible for their higher costs and their shoddy insurance coverage. And my Democratic colleagues and I will continue to fight to save as many Americans as we can from the effects of this terrible bill. And with that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Ben Ray Lujan from New Mexico.
Thank you, Linda. Well, you just saw Republicans do something that the American people thought would never happen. But we had worked together to make sure that we were taking this fight to our brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors across the country, to reject the notion that we would see the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. But what Republicans did today was increase your premiums, increase your deductibles, increase your out-of-pocket costs. If you're 50 to 64 years of age, they thought you should get hit with something called an age tax. And if that's not bad enough, 24 million people could lose their coverage. And then Republicans had the audacity, as our vice chair reminded us, that in this notion of this game with high-risk pools, annual and lifetime caps were just brought back by Republicans with their vote today. And the protections that the American people could count on, where pre-existing conditions were a thing of the past, if you had cancer or diabetes or you got hurt on the work site, Republicans brought back pre-existing conditions today. So we have to make sure that we take this fight to the American people. We have to work hand in hand, day after day, to make sure that the country knows what Republicans did to them today. Trust me, Republicans will bear the burden of this vote today. With that, I yield back to our distinguished ranking member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Mr. Frank Pallone.
Thank you, Ben Ray. I just want to debunk this myth that the Republicans keep preaching on the floor, that somehow this is repeal and replace. This is not replace. There is no replacement. Whatever the issue is, I mean, we made it possible, or we make it possible under the ACA, because I still believe it will, the Senate is not going to actually act on this or do anything that ultimately would repeal the ACA. But the bottom line is, we made it possible for people who were at a certain income to get Medicaid through the expansion of Medicaid, and we made it possible for people on the individual market to get a major subsidy depending upon their income. And that's how we expanded the number of people that have health insurance. And what this Republican bill does is it takes away the pay-fors, if you will, the way that we paid for these subsidies, the way we paid for the Medicaid expansion. So the notion that somehow this is a real replacement that's going to guarantee people health insurance is totally false, because the money isn't there anymore. There's not money for the subsidy. There's not money for the Medicaid expansion. The Medicaid expansion essentially will not exist. And the same thing, look, if in the old days, you might have been able to get some kind of junk insurance policy because you didn't have a guaranteed benefit package. They were selling a $50 policy per month in North Carolina that didn't have hospitalization, for example. And we wanted to make sure that people got good health insurance, that they had hospitalization, they had behavioral health care, they had maternity care, the essential benefit package. And we did that, and that's what the Affordable Care Act does. But they're saying, oh, we're going to get rid of the essential benefit packages, or states are going to be able to raise premiums because there'll be no more community rating. They can, charge you whatever you want. Bottom line is, this takes us back to the days when people could not afford health insurance and they had a lousy benefit package. And that's where the Republicans are taking you with this repeal. And we're not going to stand for it. And we're going to explain to the public that that's what this is all about. The good old days before the ACA were not the good old days. Things improved because of the ACA. And we're not going to let them go back to those days when people suffered and didn't have health insurance and didn't have good benefits. And we're going to work to make sure that the Senate doesn't pass this bill and that ultimately the Affordable Care Act remains in place. Thank you. Thanks to all my colleagues.
Thank you. This is a sad day for those who need health care, and I think it's important to remind people what progress has been made since the passage of the Affordable Care Act. Costs have gone up at the slowest rate in 50 years. Those with pre-existing conditions can get insurance at the standard rate. Instead of millions of people losing their insurance every year, 20 million more people have insurance. We have consumer protections, like no caps on benefits, prevention and cancer screenings, no co-pays and deductibles. Young people up to 26 can stay on their parents' policies. We're closing the donut hole. We've invested in community health centers. We're investing in education for doctors and other professionals. And we have essential benefits, including mental health and prescriptive drugs. That's progress, but all we hear from the other side are complaints, promises, and press releases. Unfortunately for them, the Congressional Budget Office reviewed the last version and found that notwithstanding all of their promises and complaints, their bill would result in 24 million fewer people having insurance. Those that get insurance will pay more and the policies would cover less. They didn't make that mistake again by having the Congressional Budget Office review this version, but there's nothing in it that makes anything better. It just makes many of things worse. One of the kind of confusing issues in the debate was surrounded pre-existing conditions. We have said that people lose their protection. They said they're protected. Let me tell you, what's in the bill says you cannot technically deny people coverage notwithstanding a pre-existing condition, but you can charge them virtually whatever you want. The estimates are your premiums will go up $10, $20, and maybe $30,000 a year. They can price it so that you can't get it. Under the present law, you get insurance notwithstanding a pre-existing condition at the standard rate, and you lose that benefit under their law. And with that, yield back to our distinguished leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. I thank our ranking members. I think what you have seen here, listening to our leadership and two of our ranking members, Mr. Scott and Mr. Pallone, and I would compliment also Richie Neal, our ranking on Energy, Ways and Means, and Mr. Yarmouth from Budget for their superior knowledge on this subject as well. When you know the facts and you care about people, you can't possibly vote for the bill that they voted for today. So what do? Either they don't know, or they don't care, or both. Some of our members think they really don't care, so that's why they don't want to know the facts. But this is a very central debate for us, for our country, because it's about the health and well-being of our country, a measure of the strength of America, not just our military might, which is important, the healthy education, the well-being of the American people. It's about our strength. It's also about an allocation of our resources. So right now, the Republicans are in the Rose Garden having a beer party to celebrate one of the biggest transfers of wealth from working families to the richest people in our country, and that is what they have been about. The trickle-down crowd is now having a beer party in the Rose Garden. But we will continue to take the case to the American people. And by the way, they're taking the case to us. They know how this affects them. So this is, again, everything is an opportunity. Two people there, and it could be any two of their 216, whatever it was, but two people there have made a difference in the lives of the American people, and we will hold them accountable. Any questions? Yes, sir.
This bill now goes to the Senate, and based on, you said this morning that this bill can't pass as it
I quoted the senators as saying that it wasn't going to.
Based on what you've heard in the math over there, what changes are you anticipating, and if they're made, can they pass when they return to the House?
Well, I really can't speak to what, in other words, they just passed it here, and so we'll see what the Senate does. But again, this thing is intrinsically bad. And when our distinguished Mr. Scott talked about, for example, pre-existing conditions and the astronomical cost of allowing for pre-existing conditions, that's what existed before the Affordable Care Act. And that's why people didn't have it, because it was too expensive. It was endlessly expensive. And you know what else? Who decides what's a pre-existing condition? They were deciding that if you were a woman subjected to domestic violence, you had a pre-existing medical condition and you had to pay more. So it's about who decides what that is, and that had been eliminated under the Affordable Care Act. Being a woman was no longer a pre-existing condition. And then the question of, sure, you can have coverage for pre-existing conditions. You could never afford it. You could never afford it because it would be endless, especially as time went by and your condition worsened. As you heard Congresswoman Sanchez say about that person, she had a pre-existing condition and another one and another one. May I say thank you for that. And Joe Crowley, who was with us, had to get a train, so he could not be with us to respond to that. Stenny, did you want to speak?
I just wanted to make a comment. I don't think the Senate's going to pass this bill in its present form. They may add amendments. I don't know. We'll see. But I wanted to add something to what we've said. Whether it passes the Senate or not, since January, they have been undermining the confidence in the marketplace. They've undermining the confidence of insurers, undermining the confidence of patients, undermining the confidence of providers. When you have confidence undermined, it drives prices up. I talked to an insurer in Maryland, I won't mention the insurer, who assessed that when Mulvaney said we may or may not pay, the White House has said they were going to pay. Talked both to the leader and myself and said we're going to pay for the cost subsidy on deductibles. And the marketplace was threatened, and it had an impact. When they continued to offer this bill, every time they offered this bill, in whatever form it was, it undermined the confidence of the market. And when you undermine the confidence of the market, you decrease availability and increase cost. And very frankly, one of the things I fear is you're going to see in the next few days some very negative announcements by companies who have no confidence in the market because of the actions the Republicans have taken over the last 4 months.
I just want to add that nobody is with them. If you look in the record and some of what we talked about this morning, every organization, every delivery of service, delivery of insurance, faith-based group, nobody is with them. American Cancer Society, you named the diagnosis, they're not with them. The AMA, they're not with them. The March of Dimes, they're not with them. So they have no one with them. So you would think they might say, what judgment did I make that nobody has a respect for what I am doing? I just want to say that we're here with Congressman Green of Texas, Congresswoman Barbara Lee just spoke, that member of our leadership of California, then Don McEachin of Virginia, a freshman member, Brenda Lawrence from Michigan, and some other members had been with us. I want to recognize them as being here. But what would be a wonderful thing to see is if the Senate said, okay, let's take the Affordable Care Act and let us see what we can do working together. Because as Stanley said, since since January, they've been undermining it. But for a long time, in the majority, they refused to implement some of the provisions of the Affordable Care Act with funding for that would head off some of the concerns that have arisen. So they, just by contrast, when they did Medicare Part D, which we all opposed, but it passed. They had the majority. It passed. We immediately enabled it to be implemented. Our offices were resources to the community, the seniors who were taking advantage of it, even though we thought it was not a good bill because it gave away the store to the pharmaceutical industry and increased the deficit by so much. But nonetheless, it was the law we implied. They come in and they're saying we don't want to fund navigators to do outreach so that people can take advantage of this, undermining the good health of the American people. But you know what? They've been whining for 7 years about the Affordable Care Act. Now let them defend what they did today. We welcome that discussion. Any other comments? Thank you.
Just a quick question. You touched on it briefly, but would you mind responding to the members going to the White House now? And I know the president tweeted about a victorious moment of the.
Remember I said about the Republican members either not knowing or not caring about it. Whatever they don't know is only matched by the President of the United States. Some of his statements about the Affordable Care Act, you're like, what are you talking about? Do you have a staff that can at least have you make a informed statement? Even if it's negative, you don't like it, but know what you're talking about. As recently as today, or yesterday, but reported today about the pre-existing medical condition. Oh, the $8 billion, that's more money than we need. No, it's a pittance, according to the conservative think tank, it's a pittance, and over 5 years, it's a fifth of a pittance. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, it will cover 1% of those in the individual market, and somebody else said, well, it could maybe be 5%, 100,000 people. So the president, it's really sad because we grant people their position, but at least know what you're talking about so that we can respect the debate back and forth. But when you think about decisions that are made by people who do not know what they're talking about, or perhaps know and don't care about the American people, that's a problem for us. But we are, we're steamed. We're ready to go to bring on that debate and listen to the American people because all along they have spoken out on this since the election.
If I can add, they're going down to celebrate something that comes way, way, way short of what the president looked the American public in the eye and said he was going to deliver. Insurance for everybody at less cost and higher quality. This bill comes nowhere close to that promise. So they are celebrating a broken promise.
And a tax break for the rich.
Leader, if I could just add something there too. So think of the signal that Republicans are sending to the American people. They just voted to increase your premiums, increase your deductibles, bring back pre-existing conditions, arguably bring back annual and lifetime caps, and they're out in the sun, in the Rose Garden, toasting champagne and cracking Coldwoods. That's what they just told the American people. The American people will reject that entirely. And so I'm glad you asked that question. It's an important one to capture.
Well, and I think you have to identify who is celebrating, who benefits from the bill. As City just mentioned, higher costs, fewer people insured, policies cover less, children in neonatal intensive care units that run up almost their lifetime benefit before their first birthday, they don't benefit. People 50 to 64 under Medicare will see their rates go up significantly. Those with pre-existing conditions will see their rates skyrocket. Who benefits? The tax cuts.
The tax cuts. I must say that one of the members, or more than one, but this thought came from some of the moderate members. Well, it doesn't really matter because the Senate is not going to let this pass. But they have put their name next to some of the worst provisions in this bill. So, again, if we look, we should be sadder because this passed. We are. The uncertainty it injects into people's lives. But maybe we had to hit rock bottom, and that's what's happening in the Rose Garden right now. Rock bottom. One last question.
Yes, we're reporting over at the Washington Examiner that the Senate won't take up this version of the bill. This is breaking, and they're going to write their own. Any comments based on that?
Well, I've heard that.
Just a real quick question. Whose idea was the singing on the floor from your side?
Oh, I think that was spontaneous. I had no idea.
No doubt it was spontaneous.
I had no idea. I don't know. They all seemed to just burst into song.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So if you guys are just joining us, thanks for following our YouTube feed. I'm going to bring it back to our studio here. That was a video of the Democrats' reaction to yesterday's vote. You heard from Nancy Pelosi and some other Senate Democrats speaking to that. She even had some acerbic comments like they're just celebrating, you know, with beers in the Rose Garden, referencing President Trump and some of the Republicans, Speaker Paul Ryan, gathering together in the White House Rose Garden to celebrate that vote. Now, I'm watching some of your comments on the YouTube, so thanks for chatting with us. Some of you are international viewers. Some of you are right here, so you have a different view of healthcare altogether and a different experience. And I think that's really interesting that we can kind of all watch each other's experience and the news on this, because the United States is quite different from a lot of other countries. So thanks for commenting from the UK. That's a really interesting perspective of what it's like there and what healthcare is like there. Now, while we await the White House press briefing, here's a shot of the White House right now. You can see a little more rain on that lens. It is still a rainy, cloudy, chilly day here in Washington, D.C. And that's a live shot of our White House. Behind it, obviously, the Washington Monument, half of it cut off there with the camera. So before we get ready for that, we are anticipating, just a little background on what we're anticipating for the White House press briefing. We're going to be hearing from Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Huckabee, her maiden name, of course. She's the daughter of Mike Huckabee, and she was on President Trump's transitional and campaign team. Now she is in the administration. She is Deputy White House Press Secretary. She is slated to be speaking at the briefing instead of Sean Spicer, so we'll see what becomes of that. And we look forward to bringing you that feed once we get it up. We also have another feed coming in from Santa Rosa, California. Check this out here. This is going to be a press conference with police outlining some new details on a cold case. It's supposedly a 10-year-old cold case, homicide case in Santa Rosa, California. I'm still efforting some more information from this area, Sonoma County, and KTVU, our sister station out there, on this case, but you can see pictures below. And so we're going to be hearing from some new updates from police on this. If you follow that, or perhaps know the case that they're referencing just from that picture, I'm going to find out some more information and bring you that before we get the statement.
You guys didn't leave me a lot of room for my notes. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve Freitas. I'm the sheriff here in Sonoma County. I'd like to make a brief statement, and then I'll take some questions. I also want to apologize in advance if I need some water, like maybe some of you. I'm struggling with allergies right now. I'm pleased to announce today that the Sheriff's Office has made a major breakthrough in the investigation surrounding the murders of Jason Allen and Lindsay Cutshaw that took place in August of 2004 in Jenner. Many of us will never forget when Sonoma County was rocked by the discovery of a young innocent couple found murdered on a secluded beach where they spent the night. Jason and Lindsay were just 26 and 22 years old at the time of their deaths. Jason from Michigan and Lindsay from Ohio were in California working at a Christian youth whitewater rafting camp in El Dorado County and were on a 3-day sightseeing trip to the Northern California coast. The Sheriff's Office has identified Sean Gallen, a 38-year-old resident of Forestville, as Jason and Lindsay's killer. Gallen was recently arrested for the murder of his brother in their Forestville home. Gallen is well known to Sheriff's Office investigators, and early on in the Jenner murder investigation, Gallen was a person of interest, and detectives never ruled him out as a possible suspect. Upon Gallen's arrest for the murder of his brother, Sheriff's Office detectives took another opportunity to talk to him about the murders in Jenner. Gallen made statements to the detectives with new information and additional investigative leads into the case. He had information about the killings that no other person could have known, and we have located evidence that corroborates his statement. Based on what detectives have been able to learn, we feel confident that we have Jason and Lindsay's killer in custody. Sheriff's Office detectives are continuing to follow up leads and are working hard to complete this investigation. We will be presenting our report to the District Attorney's Office in the near future. However, we are still encouraging anyone with information about this case or Sean Gallen to contact our detectives. For that reason, we are releasing a photo of Sean Gallen. Sergeant Crum has the picture for those of you who want it, and he will post it at the end of this press conference. I would like to take a moment to thank the other law enforcement agencies who assisted us on this investigation over the years: the Santa Rosa Police Department, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, California State Parks, and the California Department of Justice. Additionally, I want to thank the members of our community who came forward with information about this case over the years. I also want to thank the many men and women of the Sheriff's Office who have worked on this investigation. I'm grateful to the dozens of detectives from all of the Sheriff's Office investigative units who persistently and faithfully worked on this case for nearly 13 years. I wish I could name them all, but there are too many to list. I would like to acknowledge and thank the current investigative team: Lieutenant Tim Duke, Sergeant Shannon McIlvain, Lead Detective Joe Horseman, and Detectives Jeff Toney, Jason Fowler, and Jesse Hanshoe. This case is further proof that the men and women of the Sheriff's Office will never give up protecting our community and seeking justice for crime victims. Most importantly, I want to thank the Cutshall and Allen families who have consistently been supportive and patient during this 13-year investigation. And the families have sent me a statement that they'd like me to read. And this is a statement for Jason's parents, Bob and Dolores Allen, and Lindsay's parents, Chris and Kathy Cutshall. We are extremely pleased that our children's murderer is in custody where he belongs. We praise the Lord for his capture, and we trust in the due process of the law. We would like to thank the heartfelt concern of the people of Jenner and Sonoma County.
Kind of jump out of this feed, guys, a little update on that double homicide from 2004. A reminder that that was on Jenner Beach in Sonoma County, a 2004 cold case murder. The couple was Jason Allen and his fiance at the time. Lindsay Cutshall was her name. If you want to look that up for a little more information on this cold case, kind of interesting, but they do have the guy in custody. We're going to bring it over to the White House press briefing where Sarah Huckabee Sanders is on the podium right now.
Bill in short order so that we can move even closer to giving the American people the healthcare system they deserve. We've got a few things going on, as usual, here in the White House and across the administration. This morning's jobs report showed that the president's economic agenda of serious tax reform, slashing burdensome regulations, rebuilding our infrastructure, and negotiating fairer trade deals is adding jobs across the country. We added over 2,000 new jobs in April, and unemployment fell to a 10-year low. We especially saw expansion in the sectors of the economy the president has had a particular focus on: construction, manufacturing, and mining. We've made some very important progress over the last 10 days, realizing a bold plan for tax reform, moving the health care bill through the House, and funding our government. The president and his entire team will continue this laser focus on creating jobs for hardworking Americans and growing the U.S. economy. It's also Cinco de Mayo, an opportunity for us all to celebrate the extraordinary contributions that Mexican Americans have made and continue to make in this country. Yesterday, at the president's personal request, the vice president joined Labor Secretary Acosta, the Mexican ambassador to the United States, and many others for a reception. The vice president closed his remarks by echoing the president's promise to show great heart as we move forward with real and positive immigration reform, and sharing the story of his own grandparents who themselves took a chance by leaving Ireland for the land of opportunity and freedom. Finally, on a much lighter note, I wanted to make sure to note that everyone at the Department of Interior is having their first ever Bring Your Dog to Work Day, becoming the first federal department to go dog friendly. According to Secretary Zinke, having dogs in the workplace can help reduce stress. And so if anyone is up for a field trip later, just let me know, because I'm pretty sure that everybody here could use a little stress reliever. And with that, I'll take your questions. John Roberts.
Sarah, welcome to the podium.
Thank you.
By the way, from all of us. On the process.
Does that mean you're going to be super nice today, right?
On the process of getting the American Health Care Act through the Senate, there's some talk that they may have to go back to the drawing board. As you know, it was an awfully heavy lift getting the AHCA through the House. Does the president expect that the process in the Senate could be even more difficult?
Look, I think that the one thing that you can be sure of is to never underestimate this president. I think he's shown time and time again when he's committed to something, it's going to get done. He's made no secret he's committed to reforming the healthcare system. You're going to see that process take place. We're not going to get ahead of the legislative process. We expect there to be some changes, but we expect the principles and the main pillars of the healthcare bill as it exists now to remain the same.
It sounds like there could almost be wholesale changes here. And is it possible for I know that this is a little bit hypothetical because you don't know where this is going, but if the Senate makes substantial changes to what passed the House, is it ever going to get out of the conference committee?
Look, again, I think that we're focused on the big principles of the healthcare bill: lowering cost, creating a competitive environment, flexibility, giving states the ability to make decisions within the healthcare system. We don't expect those things to change. Again, I feel like there will be some changes. That's part of the process, the legislative process. We fully anticipate that to play out, but we expect that the big piece of this is the fact that Obamacare is simply unsustainable. Democrats know that, Republicans know that, the American people know that. We have to have change. That's what we're going to get, and we fully anticipate that to take place.
Sarah, the Senate tends to be a more deliberative body. How patient is the president on this health care bill? He obviously has other priorities that he's working on, tax reform, infrastructure. And does he feel like there's needs to be sort of an artificial deadline, perhaps, on when this bill needs to go to conference, perhaps by the 4th of July?
Not necessarily. The president's focused on getting it right, not getting it fast. I think we saw the mistake that the Democrats made by trying to force and rush this through. We're taking the appropriate steps to make sure that the American people get the healthcare system they deserve, and that's the president's commitment, not an artificial timeline.
Is it fair to say that this should be called Trump care at this point?
Again, I said this yesterday, but look, we're not focused on labels. What this president wants to be remembered for is not the name that's put on it, but the person that got rid of Obamacare and put a system in place that actually worked for the American people. That's the type of legacy he'd like to be focused on, is being the president that actually reformed healthcare to benefit Americans instead of to bankrupt them. And so call it what you want, but we're calling it reform, and we're calling it a system that works.
Yeah.
Kristen?
Just to follow up on the question about the timeline, John Cornyn said, Senator Cornyn said, we're not under any deadline. I heard you say in your opening remarks that you expect the Senate to take this up in short order. So are you guys on the same page in terms of the timing?
Absolutely. I said we expect them to take it up, meaning take up the conversation. Again, this is a process. We haven't put a timeline or a deadline. We want to get it right, not get it fast, and that's the focus.
You acknowledge it could take months. Is that okay with the president? Is he willing to wait that long?
Look, again, we want to wait to get it right, not to put an artificial deadline. We haven't, the administration has not laid out a time frame on when we want this to happen. We want to make sure it gets done correctly.
And just ask you about some of the criticism. The AARP says this amounts to an age tax. Other medical organizations have expressed concerns that those living with pre-existing conditions will in fact see their premiums go up. So can you guarantee Americans, people living with pre-existing conditions, seniors, that they won't see hikes in their premiums and what they pay for health care?
One of the biggest priorities of this healthcare plan and this healthcare bill, particularly for the president, was ensuring that people with pre-existing conditions were protected. The final bill added an additional $8 billion to go a step further to provide another layer of protection
and
for.
I understand that, but some opponents call that a Band-Aid. They say it's just not enough money.
Well, that's not the only piece of it that has coverage for pre-existing conditions. Again, the president wanted to focus on those that were most vulnerable, whether it's people with pre-existing conditions or the unborn. He was certainly focused on protecting the most vulnerable.
Can the president guarantee those Americans
this
they
is
won't
like
see their
12
premiums
question
go up?
Friday instead of 2 question Friday.
But can those with pre-existing conditions and older Americans be guaranteed that they won't see hikes in the prices they pay?
That's the whole point of this bill, is to lower costs across the board, not just for those with pre-existing conditions, but to create competition so you have lower premiums, to give states flexibility. That's the entire purpose
All right, guys, looks like we have a brief problem with our feed of the White House press briefing with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. A little bit different today. She's the deputy press secretary for the White House. So we seem to have lost that feed. Not quite sure why. Possibly weather related. I don't know. We'll see if we get it back in just a moment. Looks like it's coming back for us. Here we go.
First piece of advice would never be to use Politico for a source of for your story, but in terms when it comes to the opioid, clear this is a top priority ahead of a budget. We haven't had a final document, and I think it would be ridiculous to comment on a draft version of something at this point.
Would you loosely address the idea that he's contemplating a substantial cut to that office and to move that sort of work outside of that office?
I'm not going to comment on ongoing discussions. Again, there's not a final document. When there is, we'd certainly be happy to discuss that. I think the bigger point here is the president has made very clear that the opioid epidemic in this country is a huge priority for him, something he is certainly very focused on tackling, and something that I think was ignored by the previous administration that won't go ignored in this one.
Thanks. So I got France. I only might take a second. French elections, we know President Obama has a dog in the fight. Does President Trump have a dog in the fight? If so, who? And if not, does he at least have a prediction on who's going to take it and whether that matters?
I haven't had the opportunity to have a conversation with him about whether or not he supports any particular candidate, but I can tell you that the president will work with whoever the people of France decide to elect. That's a decision that they need to make, but the president's committed to working with leaders across the globe to combat a whole host of issues, and certainly would do that with whoever the people elect.
Thanks. Could you just address what the president, I have two questions I should say, I want to preface this, not 12 though. The president's comments yesterday, does he really think that Australia's government-run universal healthcare system is better than ours?
I think he was simply being complimentary of the prime minister, and I don't think it was much more than that.
Okay, and then I want to ask you about this case out of Maryland. As you probably know, the prosecutors have dropped the rape charges against the two undocumented teens accused of attacking that 14-year-old classmate. This White House was vocal on that case. From this podium, Sean Spicer said that a big part of the reason the president has made illegal immigration and crackdown such a big deal is because of tragedies like this. Did this White House unfairly jump to conclusions in this case?
Look, I think that we're always looking to protect the American people. Sean was speaking about what he knew at the time, and certainly I haven't had a chance to dive into the latest on that, but we will, and we'll get back to you.
You want to retract anything that the White House has said so far?
I'm not going to retract anything without further information in front of me, but certainly.
Have you talked to Sean, and does he have any regrets about what he said?
I have not talked to Sean. He is on Navy duty, where you don't get to carry your phone around very often, I don't think. So, I mean, I talk to him every day, but I haven't yet today. So when I do, I'll certainly ask him.
On that question, is there a general danger that the White House, through its rhetoric, is animating too many people to jump to conclusions against immigrants, and in the process diminishing the entire immigrant community, whether they're law-abiding or not?
Not at all. The president has been incredibly outspoken against crime in any form, fashion, certainly from his joint address to his speech last week on the Holocaust Remembrance Day. Look, this is a law and order president. He's focused on restoring law and order. We've seen a spike in crime and rates starting in 2015 across the board, not just in any particular sector. I think that's why he campaigned and talked so much about needing to restore law and order in this country. It's why he's focused on securing our border, stopping drug trafficking, human trafficking. Those are things that have been a priority for him, and I think that the reason is because he places such a high value on that. And I think to call into question his rhetoric to be anything other than somebody who has condemned hate and violence in all of its forms is simply just a complete misrepresentation, not only who the president is, but of what he's said. Matthew?
Thanks, Sarah. Back to healthcare. We've talked about how there will be changes in the Senate. You've said the White House is open to that as long as the principles remain the same. I was wondering if we could get a little more specificity on specifically what principles and how they're represented in the current House bill. So, for example, is a state's ability to waive essential health benefits and the pre-existing conditions protections, that the Freedom Caucus negotiated so hard for, does that have to stay in the bill for the president to support it?
Look, again, I think that the biggest piece of that is to allow states that flexibility, that the people that are closest to the people getting care are the ones helping make that decision.
That has to stay.
Look, I'm not going to litigate the details from here, but that's part of the legislative process and part of the ongoing discussions. But I know that it's a priority for the president as well to protect people with pre-existing conditions.
Just to follow up on that, so we heard a lot of the rhetoric about repealing the Affordable Care Act being about job creation, and you cited those jobs numbers at the beginning. I think we're in month 86 straight of job growth. And we're hearing less of the talking point about Obamacare killing jobs. Does the president still stand by that this was a job killer and that that's a reason to repeal it? Or has he moved on from that argument?
I certainly think he stands by that comment.
But how do you explain the consistent growth since that act was
Well, I
passed?
think other things have taken place. Just because one thing may be killing jobs, that doesn't mean you can't have job growth in other sectors. Primarily, the places where we saw the most growth in this jobs report were in manufacturing, coal miners, other places. So I certainly think you can have job growth even when there are job-killing regulations.
Sarah, back to the comment that the president made to the Australian Prime Minister. Are you saying that he didn't mean what he was saying when he said that they have a better healthcare system?
I'm saying that the president was complimenting a foreign leader on the operations of their healthcare system, and that it didn't mean anything more than that.
He doesn't believe they have a better healthcare system?
I think he believes that they have a good healthcare system for Australia. Again, that's one of the biggest things that is wrong with Obamacare. It's tried to be a one-size-fits-all, and that's the opposite of what the plan is that we're putting in place right now. It allows for state flexibility. What works in Australia may not work in the United States. So I think, again, he was complimenting the Prime Minister, and we're focused on putting a healthcare plan in place that works here. Carol Lee?
The Pentagon said today that a Navy SEAL was killed in Somalia, the first in quite some time. Does the White House any comment on that? Is the President briefed on that? Should we expect a statement from him?
The president has been briefed on that. He spoke directly with General McMaster earlier today. Obviously, we first and foremost want to express our deepest condolences and our deepest appreciation for all of the men and women in the military and the ultimate sacrifice that they paid, particularly this soldier and all of the others. The president has made it certainly a major priority to protect the men and women who protect us. That's one of the reasons that he wanted to put so much emphasis on rebuilding the military, and that was a priority for him in the budget. And again, our deepest sympathies and condolences go out to all of the men and women in uniform, and particularly this family.
Expect a statement from him?
From the president? I don't know at this time if I know he doesn't want to get ahead of the notification process, and that's still taking place at this point.
Sarah.
Abby?
Hey, Sarah. So the president tweeted this morning that he's saving taxpayers money by working from Bedminster over the weekend instead of New York City, but would he not save more money by simply working out of the White House? And why is he making that sort of comparison?
Well, look, this is the president's first time to be back in the New York metro area, and he's staying at his private residence in New Jersey versus staying in Manhattan. Had he stayed in Manhattan, the disruption would have been far greater than being in New Jersey. The bottom line is the president is the president no matter where he goes, and he doesn't get to control the level of costs and security that may come along with that.
But he does control where he works. Why doesn't he work more from the White House? He spent the last maybe 14 weekends.
You guys complain we work too much around here and that you're too tired and now we don't work enough.
For the purposes of cost and savings to American taxpayers, which he raised this morning.
Again, this is the president's first time to go back home to the New York metro area, and I think he's trying to save the taxpayers' money the best way he can by taking his team and focused and being in New Jersey instead of in New York, where it would have caused a much greater disruption and a much greater cost to taxpayers. Eamon?
Thanks, Sarah. Earlier you mentioned this morning's big jobs report.
And you also cited the president's tax plan as one of the reasons for that job growth. Are you saying the tax plan that hasn't passed yet was responsible for creating jobs in the month of April?
What I'm saying, I mean, I think we saw from the very beginning, the minute that the president was actually elected, even before he took office, you saw consumer confidence go up. We've had
All right, guys, sorry about that. We're having an issue with our feed. We'll leave it here one moment just to see if we get that back. But just a reminder, that is Sarah Huckabee Sanders filling in for Sean Spicer today, who is usually there at the podium for the White House press briefing. She's had a long career in politics, dating back to her early career in 2002 in Arkansas. She did a lot of work in Arkansas for the governor of Arkansas and on other campaigns just throughout her lifetime. And then she, fast forward to now, she became a senior advisor on Trump's campaign. Now she's deputy press secretary in his administration. So you could just hear her tone with some of the reporters, and just the difference between her and Sean Spicer is kind of striking to how she deals with people and some of the reporters. You also heard one reporter pipe up about the Rockville High School rape or alleged rape case that we've been tracking on Fox 5 for weeks now, and we've even talked about it this morning about the breaking news that case or that charge was dropped for one of the males involved in that case. Alex Limon, our reporter, has more on that story tonight. We still don't know a lot of the details surrounding it, where Jose Montano, that 17-year-old, is being held right now. But we'll be finding out some more information on that and bring that to you as soon as we have it. I was looking to see if we had any more tweets from Alex Limon. She's been following that case and that news from this morning, that breaking news. And you heard, if you were listening in, Sarah mentioned that she didn't want to retract anything that Sean Spicer had said that the White House had put out about that, but she would be looking into more information to find out more because Sean Spicer did talk about that a few times at the podium regarding that case and about immigration and what he felt regarding that whole situation. So she was obviously questioned about it in light of today's news, so I thought that was interesting to bring to you. I've been looking at your comments here on my stream, and it's nice to hear from some of you guys who are viewers from all over the world, so thanks for clarifying some of the interesting points about healthcare in your country. I'm looking at one of these comments from Derek in the UK, so thanks for commenting on that. And for engaging with us. And if you are watching our feed and you're enjoying it, our live stream of events, please do click subscribe on that YouTube channel. You'll be able to see us pop up at any time so that you can follow us here on the channel. And don't forget to check in with our social media too. You can follow us on Facebook and on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Fox5DC. That is our handle. Looks like we are not getting that feed back in. So a little bit of trouble, I guess, with the White House briefing feed. But continue to follow our Facebook page for updated web stories on all the stuff we've been putting out today, from politics to other breaking news. And that is going to be it. I think we'll close down the show, guys. It's almost 2 o'clock. But thanks again for joining us here in the DC newsroom. Going to leave you with a shot of rainy DC today. And don't forget, you can join us all weekdays, Monday through Friday, here midday Eastern Time, United States Eastern Time, from 11:30 a.m. to around 2 p.m., which it is 2 p.m. here in D.C. Here's a shot of the outside of the White House. We'll take you outside the briefing room to the White House there. That is a live look of the D.C., Washington area. You can see the rain on that camera lens today. Quite the rainy, cold day here in D.C. Have a great weekend, guys. We're going to leave you here. Join us again for Fox 5 Live next week. We'll see you Monday.